Okay, so please feel free to ask questions and comments in the chat, and there'll be, I think, also some time. You can also unmute yourself and ask a question as well. And if the questions are out of hand, if somehow, then we'll put an end to that. But I suspect it won't happen. Okay, so please stop and ask questions, whether they're questions of content, right, or at matters of clarification. So use the chat, or for now use the chat or unmute yourself. But I think it's best to keep yourself muted, otherwise to avoid extraneous noise. Okay, so I'm going to first I'm going to share a link with you of the source sheets. You can, it's a Sapphire source sheets. You can on your own you can click on it and explore. Why is that? Oh, sorry, hold on. Sorry about, yeah, no. Sorry about that. Why is it? That's interesting. Are you having trouble? Huh. Okay, well, I'll share my screen. How about that? Okay, that'll work. Okay. All right. So yeah, here's the source sheet. It's very strange that I'm gonna try once more to share the link with you guys, okay? Because that was I don't want you to have to only access this from my. Let's try one more time. Here's my link, and where's my, here's the chat. There it is, great, thanks. Okay, I don't know why that, now it's working. Okay, you'll have it, great, okay. Thanks guys, all right, that was weird. All right, anyway, so that's done. So let's look at this. Okay, here we go. Here's our first source. First source is a series of Mishnayot in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, and some of these topics should be very familiar to us. Okay, Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah Shechal Yom Shabbat. If Rosh Hashanah occurs on Shabbat, does that sound familiar to anyone? Rosh Hashanah on Shabbat, right? Do you remember? Yes, last week, right? Okay, what do? The Mikdash Hayu Tokim Aval Lo B'Medina. So in the Beit HaMikdash, they used to blow shofar. However, outside the Beit HaMikdash, they didn't blow shofar. Okay. B'shechar Beit HaMikdash, when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, Hitkin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Shayu Tokim B'chol Makom Sheish Bo Beitin. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, okay, so now there's no Beit HaMikdash. Any place where there is a Beitin, any town, any Jewish community that is large enough to have its own court, we will blow shofar there, just as we used to do in the Beit HaMikdash when Rosh Hashanah occurs on Shabbat. Okay, what do? We do not blow shofar, right? That's our practice. We do not blow shofar on Shabbat. Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Lo hitkin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai el b'yavne bilvad. Okay, so Rabbi Elazar says, no, actually, that's not what happened. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai actually made a somewhat different declaration. It was only in Yavne that he allowed blowing of shofar. Amrulo, they said to him, Echad Yavne, Echad Chol Makom Sheish Bo Beitin. No, it's not actually just in Yavne, it's any location has a Beitin. We should remind ourselves who Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was. When the Romans besieged Jerusalem, the Jewish government fell into the hands of a group of zealots who burned the supplies of food that were in Jerusalem in an effort to, I guess, force the inhabitants of the city to fight. And they wouldn't let anyone leave the city. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai knew this war against Rome was futile and only destructive, and he pretended to be dead, had his followers, bring him out of the city in a coffin. They let dead people out of the city, and he went to Vespasian, who at the time was the general leading the Roman army, called him emperor. According to the Talmud, Vespasian was very impressed. How do you know I was the emperor? I'm not the emperor. And just then a messenger came and said, oh, the Senate just voted, you're the emperor now. So Vespasian said, okay, you're good. This guy, you have skills. And what can I offer you? And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, Ten li yavne v'chachamea. I know Yerushalayim is going to be destroyed. Just allow me to take some students and build a yeshiva in Yavne. And that's how, the Torah survived the destruction of Yerushalayim. Because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was given Yavne and its sages. Famously, on his deathbed, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is fearful. He doesn't know if he made the right decision. Maybe he could have asked for more. He should have asked us for Jerusalem to be spared. Could have asked for more, but he didn't know. And in the end, he chose Yavne. So Yavne, the city that he built from nothing into the center, the focal point of the Torah, in Yavne, you can blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah. Okay. He says, "V'od zod hayta Yerushalayim heter." Yavne was entirely like Yerushalayim. Shekol ir shehi ro'ah v'shamar v'vav yochel lavo tukin. So when the Beit HaMikdash existed, any city that you could see Jerusalem from, and if you've ever been out, I lived and studied for 3 years in Gush Etzion. I was very proud of the fact that on a clear day you could see Jerusalem, right? You could see, so any place they could see Yerushalayim, and hear from Yerushalayim, they could blow shofar in that city as well. It wasn't just Yerushalayim. When it came to Yavne, that was just the place. They only blew shofar in the Beit Din itself. Okay, what's the difference? What's special at the Beit Din? Why shofar in the Beit Din? Why would that be different? Any conjectures? And remember why we don't blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah?
Because
I can't hear you speaking.
About establishing the new month.
I can't hear you. Sorry, speak a little bit louder.
Is it about establishing the new month with certain?
So no, that was establishing the new month is why we ultimately switched to a 2-day Rosh Hashanah. Kate is correct. Someone might go outside the Erev, or there might not be an Erev. You might carry the shofar. Okay, the story of the establishing the month we'll get to. I think that it's relevant. But the reason we don't blow shofar on Shabbat is because you might carry the shofar to someone who can teach you how to blow the shofar. And finally, so better not to blow shofar at all. Now, the Yerushalmi gives a different explanation, but according to the Babylonian Talmud, this is the explanation. This is the reason why we don't blow shofar on Shabbat. Binyamin, you raised your hand. Yes, want to say something?
Is there any element also because of the Beit the Beit Din of Yavne being the replacement for the Beit Din that was in the temple? This Beit Din specifically is a special place where different rules can be followed.
So why? So why would that be?
Because Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai is trying to rebuild Judaism from literally the ashes of the destruction of the temple. And he's going to sort of connect this place to sort of replacing what we did before. And we're going to be special here, like we were special in the temple.
That's great. On to that for a moment, and I just want to fill in one gap just to make sure we. I think another piece is that in a Beit Din you're not going to make mistakes. You're not going to make stupid mistakes like carry your shofar outside, right? Because in other words, I think the idea is it could be, is there one location? If we have restrictions in Judaism that are based on people foolishly, carelessly, not paying attention and doing something that's forbidden, maybe there's a place like a Beit Din where there's heightened consciousness, where you'll be scared of the judges. You're not going to do something forbidden like that because it's everyone's from in shul. No one's gonna. Someone everyone walks to shul. It's just some people walk from the parking lot, some people walk from home, but everyone walks into shul, right? So it's in the Beit Din nobody carries the shofar. Okay, so maybe we can allow the shofar to go. And this is similar to also in the Beit HaMikdash itself. There were no rabbinic restrictions. The ain't shvut b'mikdash, the Gemara says. Many of the rabbinic restrictions that we have on Shabbat are. Many of the rabbinic don't apply in the Beit HaMikdash. The idea is the Kohanim are going to be in their heightened religious sensitivity are not going to make careless errors or sloppy errors because they're in this holy place doing holy work surrounded by holy people. And Nathan's saying maybe it's not about carelessness. It's about it's so formal that for sure it's not like a shtibel, it's not like a backyard minyan, a parking lot minyan. This is like a Beit Din of an important city. The person is going to prepare in advance and make sure shofar is where it's supposed to be and knows how to blow it, right? Why is the first Rosh Hashanah not also Rosh Chodesh? The two seem to be slightly different in that way. Ooh, that's that's a great question. It's beyond the scope of what I want to speak about right now. But if you but it's a great question, and I've actually seen it discussed. There are sources that delve into that. So, in fact, I even came across them recently. So, please follow up with me if I forget. And
the reason I asked this is, if I understand right, the trumpet was blown on Rosh Chodesh.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but that's not. So that's a Beit HaMikdash ritual, and they also brought korbanot on, right? So this is, I guess, when the Beit HaMikdash existed, you did all the Beit HaMikdash things. In the Beit HaMikdash, which included things you couldn't do on Shabbat, you could check animals, right? All the things you couldn't otherwise do on Shabbat. But shofar is it's a Rosh Hashanah korban, right? It's not a mitzvah, right? It's not directly. It's not a Beis Hamikdash mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that's related to the day. We blow shofar in Chutz La'aretz, right? No connection to the Beit Hamikdash. You can't play instruments. So prohibition against playing instruments on Shabbat is a rabbinic prohibition. Also, lest you repair the instrument. A guitar string plucks off, you got to put a new string on. That's a biblical prohibition. So there's a rabbinic decree: no instrument playing on Shabbat, lest you fix the instrument. Maybe tuning the instrument is a biblical violation also. In the Beit Hamikdash, they had instruments. So again, because it's a rabbinic restriction, and they were just careful, like not to make these. Not to, if the instrument broke, they put it aside, right? And they were careful about those things. But shofar is not an instrument. Shofar is not really an instrument. I think that's discussed in the Gemara. It's called a craft. It's not really playing an instrument. I mean, we use that language in English, but the Gemara distinguishes between playing an instrument and blowing shofar, which is, they call it a craft, I believe. It's not malacha, it's a craft. It's like a skill that you could develop, which they describe as different from an instrument. So that rabbinic restriction wouldn't apply for shofar. It's about carrying a shofar. Let's continue. Another example, okay? There's a lot of great stuff here. All right, Mishnah 3. In earlier times, lulav was taken for 7 days in the temple and in the provinces for 1 day only. Okay, so taking lulav and etrog on Sukkot, that is a 7-day mitzvah in the Beit Hamikdash. It's a 1 day mitzvah outside of the Beit Hamikdash. The Torah says, you shall take for yourselves on the first day of Sukkot, the 4 species. So, all right, it makes sense. It's a 1 day mitzvah. Only on the first day of Sukkot is there a mitzvah to take lulav and etrog. In the Beit Hamikdash, they use ritual, they would march it around and wave it, and that was a 7-day mitzvah. And what happened? Mishachar Beit Hamikdash, Yitkin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Shei lulav nital mevidina shiva zecher Hamikdash, v'shei yom hanef kulo asor. Okay, so he said that the lulav you should take also in Medina, outside the Beit HaMikdash, for 7 days. And that Yom Hanef Kula, so that's a grain omer prohibition, right? There's no korban brought, so you have to wait the entire day that the korban would have been brought to eat your new grain. Let's bracket that for now. Lulav, I think, is sort of a more relevant or more familiar example for us. We have a 7-day mitzvah, all 7 days of Sukkot. We take the lulav and etrog, we say the bracha, we shake it. Okay, Torah, you take lulav and etrog in 1 day. When the Yochanan ben Zakkai says, no, we're going to take it all 7 days because that's what used to be done in the Beit Hamikdash. Questions, comments on the lulav case? Okay, all right. One thing to, yeah, okay. Is this takana? Is this decree? Is it extending the Beit Hamikdash to include all of the world, D'Rabbanan, or is extending the first day to all 7 days, D'Rabbanan? Okay, maybe that's a way to think about what he's doing, a question about what he's doing. Once Rabbi Lichtenstein, I'll make that, say that. Okay, Mishnah 4. Okay, this was, who said this? Charles said this, I think, right? Or somebody said this. Originally, they would accept testimony about the new moon for the entire day. So what happened? So they used to accept witness. Okay, in the time of the Beit Hamikdash, they didn't have a fixed calendar. In fact, even after the Beit Hamikdash, they didn't have a fixed calendar until sometime later. And the way our lunar calendar functioned is that witnesses came to the Beit Din in the Beit Hamikdash, and they said, we saw the new moon last night. In which case it would say, okay, great, today is Rosh Chodesh, or today is Rosh Hashanah, okay? Because witnesses came and they saw the moon in the sky last night. Today is Rosh Chodesh or Rosh Hashanah, if that was the month. And if they didn't come, then the next day would be Rosh Hashanah, right? I mean, or Rosh Chodesh, okay? Each month in Hebrew, in the Hebrew calendar, is either 29 or 30 days, okay? It takes about 29 and a half days for the moon to go around the earth. So each month is 29 or 30 days, and about half of them are 29, about half of them are 30, and that's how it evens out. But we have a calendar that sort of determines that. They would just wait and see if the people saw the moon or not. So if they saw the moon, it was a 29-day month. If they didn't see the moon, it would be a 30-day month, and the following day would be declared as Rosh Chodesh. So, you're waiting and waiting and waiting for the witnesses to come. Is today Rosh Chodesh? Is tomorrow Rosh Chodesh? Is today Rosh Hashanah even? Is tomorrow Rosh Hashanah? It's a pretty big stakes. I mean, I guess people weren't doing Melacha, like, because today might be Rosh Hashanah, but, everything else they're just waiting to do. All of the temple ritual, the songs, instead they're waiting and waiting. And what happened? They came very, very late. They were so delayed that by the time they came, the Levites were singing the wrong song, right? I mean, imagine, some of you have, we just attended Rosh Hashanah Tefillah. We took out a lot of the Pew team. It's still a very long davening, right? It's a lot to say on Rosh Hashanah. Imagine if it's 10 minutes before sunset, witnesses run up to the Beit HaMikdash and say, "We saw the moon last night. Today is Rosh Hashanah." You'd be like, "Oh my gosh, really? They got a chakra, Musaf. They got a lot to do. They got a lot to say, and the sun's about to set." That's really, we can't have that. So, what'd they say? He made a takana. Shlo yehu mekalim ela ad mincha. You can't bring witnesses until mincha time. If they came after mincha, they would say, okay, both days are sacred, as sanctified as Rosh Chodesh or Rosh Hashanah. So after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, okay, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, I forgot I'm sharing what happened? What did I delete the... I deleted the source by accident because I was so enthusiastic in my pointing. Sorry about that. Let me bring it back. Hold on. Sorry about that. So enthusiastic in my, was it chapter 4, right? Yeah, 1 to 4. There it is. Okay. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, the Beit HaMikdash doesn't exist. There's no songs. There's no korbanot. So at this point, we'll accept witnesses the entire day. There's no reason to delay, or there's no reason to have an artificial limit in the timing on which we'll accept witnesses because there's no Beit HaMikdash. Amr Yeshua ben Karch. Yeshua ben Karch said, "V'od zog dikim Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai." He said, furthermore. Okay, so he also said that you don't have to. That's an extraneous matter actually in terms of which Beit Din they go to. Okay, but the piece about the timing I think is also very significant because he's saying his takana is responding to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash in a way that's making things. Sort of making the halakha more responsive to the new situation. Okay, by saying we're not going to be limited anymore by the way things by the way things used to be. We can our reality can be like correspond, or halakhic practice can correspond to our new reality. Okay, look at the next source. How do we know? How do we know that we should commemorate the Beit HaMikdash? Okay, it's a verse in Jeremiah. For I will restore health to you, and I will heal you of your wounds, said the Lord, because they have called you an outcast. She is Zion, and there is none who care for her. That's the verse in Jeremiah. Michal Debai Drisha. That suggests you have to care. You have to be concerned about the state of Yerushalayim. It's not something you can forget. You have to care about Yerushalayim. So we do things Zecher LeMikdash. Okay. So what are practices that we just sort of can list either in the chat or verbally? What are things we do Zecher LeMikdash? Some examples of things to do Zecher LeMikdash in Jewish ritual life? Any ideas? Either explicitly with that phrase or not explicitly with that phrase?
Isn't
yes. Good. Yes, exactly. The Hillel sandwich on Pesach. Zecher LeMikdash Kehillel. We say Hillel sandwich. Very good, everyone. Yeah. Okay. Some of the things in the Seder plate. Okay. But good. So. Yeah, like maybe the egg is commemorating the korban shlemim in the temple times, and Hillel sandwich is really good because that we're doing something. Hillel ate his korban Pesach with matzah and maror together. And so we eat our, of course in Pesach, we eat our matzah and maror together, zeichel hamikdash kehillel, to remember how it was done in the Beit HaMikdash like Hillel. I don't know if Birkat Kohanim is zeichel. I mean, you're a Kohen. Oh, no, Benjamin, sorry, it wasn't Benny, it was Benjamin, the other Benjamin who said that. I don't think Birkat Kohanim is zeichel hamikdash. I think Birkat Kohanim is actually a mitzvah that Kohanim have that's actually independent of the Beit HaMikdash. Is that right, Benny? I don't know. What did they tell you in Kohen school? I don't know. Okay. I don't think it's zeichel hamikdash. I think that's like the mitzvahs given to Kohanim to bless the Jewish people. Two challahs, that's zeichel hamikdash. I don't know. Two challahs is shamor and zachor, I thought. I don't know if it's zeichel hamikdash. Tilim of the day, right? Hayom Yom, whatever. Shayu. This is the song that the Levites said in the Beit HaMikdash. That's interesting. So I don't know. That's good. Oh, that comes from two challahs comes from taking 2 portions of man, which is not from the Beit HaMikdash. Living part of your house not complete when, yes, Galaxy S20 5G. I don't know who you are, but you're correct. There's the halacha is you should leave part of your house unfinished, as to remember the destruction of Yerushalayim, or you have a setting, when you set the table, you don't fully set it. So some destruction you have in your life around you, surrounded by some commemoration. At a wedding, some of the chatan puts ashes on his forehead at a wedding. That's less common in weddings in our circles, I think, but they're not entirely absent in weddings in our circles. Like I've seen it in weddings where I've officiated. And stepping on breaking the glass, right? We remember the destruction of the temple. I know but the kehil sandwich is a great paradigmatic example because we're doing a mitzvah in a way that remembers the way the mitzvah was done in the Beit HaMikdash. So let's look at the next source here. This is Kaf Ted Bet. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had all of these things that he instituted when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. We saw them in the Mishnah. This is the Gemara on that Mishnah. Tana Rabbanan, Pamachad Chal Rosh Hashanah Liyot B'Shabbat. Once happened that Rosh Hashanah occurred on Shabbat. Vayu Kol Ha'arim Mitkansin, and all the people gathered together to celebrate Rosh Hashanah in Yavna. Amar lehem Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai l'Bnei Betera. He said to Bnei Betera, which is not just a street in Jerusalem. It was just these were like some religious authorities or people who were colleagues of his, the Bnei Betera. Nitzka, let's blow the shofar. Okay, like the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. It's the first Rosh Hashanah that occurred. I wonder. I feel like somebody could probably figure out the day of like which year. Well, no, you couldn't actually. No, because there was no fixed calendar. You couldn't do this. I was wondering which year. Well, how many years after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash did this occur? That the first time after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, that Rosh Hashanah occurred on Shabbat. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai thinks that the shofar should be blown in Yavna, okay, even on Shabbat, because there is no Beit HaMikdash, and we're going to blow shofar here. So he had to convince the Bnei Betera, and they said, "I'm really not done. Let's don't be hasty. Let's talk about this, okay? Let's gotta bring this to a board vote, okay? You can't just change the ritual practice, unilaterally, all of a sudden on Rosh Hashanah." Amar lehem nitzka decharkach nidu. Listen, like it's Rosh Hashanah now. We really don't have time for a whole deliberation. There's going to be a subcommittee. It's going to be a bit very messy. There'll be lots of votes, and like let's just blow the shofar. Everyone's here waiting to listen. Let's blow the shofar. Afterwards, we can talk about it and come up with a policy. So after they blew shofar, they said, okay, can we talk about this now? Like we just blew shofar on Shabbat. This is like a big deal. Let's talk about it. Amar lehem kfar nishma karen b'yavna v'ein meshivin lachar ma'aseh. Look, it's too late, okay? The precedent has been set. The shofar has been blown in Yavna, and we're not going to then question something that was done, okay? Like a reputable Beit Din oversaw this ritual, and it's too late to question what was done. So, okay, so he it's better to ask forgiveness than permission, or, better to, let's just get this precedent down on the ground, like very boldly. This is what has to happen, and then we can talk about it. So here we see Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai sort of very, again, like sort of insistent that ask forgiveness, not permission. Right, thank you. Right, here he doesn't even ask forgiveness, right? He just, he was so sure this should happen that, he says, we'll do it. We'll talk about it later. And once he did it, he says, well, now there's something to talk about. Okay, very tricky. Okay, I think it's an interesting like sort of model of leadership. Okay, okay. This is the Mishnah we saw, and which I want to move up above to the first source where it was originally before I accidentally moved it. Okay. So, okay, I have a link here if you want to see one of my teachers, Rabbi Dov Linzer, wrote a short but very clear article on this topic exploring this position. So you can find these sources and several others and his analysis of it. What was Rabbi Yochanan's agenda in these ritual changes after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed? How is this different from the Zeichel HaMikdash items that we thought of earlier? We thought of, right, blowing, right? We thought about eating the Hillel sandwich. Is that what he's doing? Is he saying we want to remember the fact that in the Beit HaMikdash, shofar was blown on Shabbat, and so we're going to blow shofar on Shabbat even out to the Beit HaMikdash? Do you want to remember the fact that in the Beit HaMikdash, lulav was taken for 7 days, and so we're going to take lulav for all 7 days of Sukkot, even out to the Beit HaMikdash? Similar to in the times of the Beit HaMikdash when we had Korban Pesach, Hillel insisted that the Korban Pesach had to be eaten with matzah and maror, and so we're going to eat our matzah and maror together, Zeichel HaMikdash ki Hillel. Is that what he's doing, or is he doing something else? And what Rabbi Linzer suggests in that article, in which I've been convinced of, which is why I'm sharing it, is that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had a very different model of Zeichel HaMikdash. It was really about kind of acknowledging the absence of the Beit HaMikdash and not replacing it, but sort of accommodating ourselves to a religious reality, a world of Torah mitzvot without a Beit HaMikdash. Right? So we blow shofar out, on Shabbat because, as Benny said, right, in the absence of the Beit HaMikdash, Yavna is like the new Beit HaMikdash, or any Beitin, maybe the Chachamim would say. Any Beitin, that's a place where people have the same type of heightened religious consciousness and self-awareness and inspiration that they can blow shofar on Shabbat. No one's going to carry the shofar. And we're going to take lulav all 7 days of Sukkot because everyone is that sort of sanctity is that sort of way of worship now is sort of more expansive. Marty Strauss said, remove knives from the table for Birkat HaMazon to remember the altar. I think that the more grim explanation I heard of why we remove knives for Birkat HaMazon is lest we stab ourselves in our depression. When we recall Jerusalem in Birkat HaMazon, you might be so depressed that you'll stab yourself, right? So that's a pretty good little grim, macabre reasoning, but there is the practice to remove knives before Birkat HaMazon. That was my wife's family were very very careful about that. So sort of the question I want to ask, I think I put it right here on the source sheet. Okay, so just giving it away, right? Like we sort of had this moment in a lesser degree. Sort of in our lives too, like our shul closed on March 13th, and it stayed closed until, I don't remember, when did we first have, we didn't have Minyanim again until the middle of June, and we still haven't opened back for normal. And I think we're in a moment, right? Exactly. We're in a moment that's, thank God our shul is not, I'm speaking to you from the shul, it's very much not destroyed, okay? It's right here, you can look around, it's great, okay? It's looking great, but we're not there anymore. And we've had to reconstruct our religious lives without the structures and some of the structures and the forms that sustained it individually for years that we've been going to the shul, and for the Jewish people, right? We've had shuls to go to for thousands of years, and there were a period of months this summer where no Jew had a shul anywhere in the world, almost. And shuls haven't fully been restored to us. So in a small way, right, in a hopefully very temporary way, this is a kind of a dynamic that confronted Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and his generation after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And so there were some things that were done. Zeichel HaMikdash, let's remember how they did things in the Beit HaMikdash so that we just recall that memory of how it was done so that one day we'll do it again. And there's also Zeichel HaMikdash in the sense of, well, it could be a while until we get back to the Beis HaMikdash. So let's kind of establish our new religious lives on more firmer footing so that what was special at the Beis HaMikdash can now pervade, other places as well. I think maybe both of those things are true in our religious lives. I have a song, which I'll share with you, which is one set of examples, but I want to really open it right now to sort of see what what you all have done. If you have examples that come to your mind about sort of these kind of Zeichel and Mikdash Me'at, things that reminded you of our miniature Beit HaMikdash the time that we were away. I don't know. So please feel free to share or chat or whatever. But or tell me that you think this analogy is totally off. Okay.
One thing we were talking about is whether there's a difference or not between now and when the Beit Mikdash was destroyed, because maybe, like right now we think it's temporary, but then we were talking about maybe they also thought it was temporary at the time. So, does the time frame in which things are going on make a difference in how you change, how much you change your practice?
And did Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai think it was irrevocably destroyed the second time? Is the related question.
Yeah, I don't think he thought I mean, he was. I think all of us, we all prayed for building the Beit HaMikdash, but I think he understood that it would not be like a simple thing, and I suspect he knew it would not.
You mean it wasn't going to be rebuilt before the election?
Right, exactly. Right. I think he suspected that it would be not in his lifetime, or certainly like a long time away. Right. I think he probably had that awareness. And it's interesting, in Rabbi Linder's article, he compares Rabbi Akiva, who had a more, who was a generation later, 2 generations later, and was, at least some traditions, was a militant activist who aligned himself with Bar Kokhba and supported the rebellion against the second rebellion against Rome, and really tried to, like in his days, rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, and had maybe a different attitude towards Zeichel HaMikdash. So maybe that was a different stance. But I don't think he. So I think all of us, I hope, are anticipating returning to shul in a time frame of months or years, months, hopefully, right? Not years, but in a way that was, Yochanan Zakkai had longer. But look, I think people, when we first closed the shul, somebody, I spoke to somebody who who worked for the Red Cross, and she said, you must know how long it takes for builders to get right. Even if they gotten the go-ahead, it takes a while, right? It's not exactly. There was a Roman emperor, Julian the Apostate, is how he's known by the Christians. He thought he was an apostate, meaning he rejected Christianity after the Roman Empire had become officially Christian, and he thought that the way to undermine Christianity would be to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. And so he authorized the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, and this happened. Like they started construction, and then he died in battle against the Persians, or Parthians, whatever. So nothing happened of it. This event is not recorded at all, as far as I'm aware, in any rabbinic literature, but there was an attempt, like in the 3rd century, to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, like a brief attempt, so whatever. So the Christians talk about it. It's in Christian history. There was an earthquake, that's right. That was like God's disapproval, according to the Christian writers. There was also an earthquake, and then he was killed in battle, I think. Where was I? Oh, so I actually remember I have a very distinct memory of like talking to somebody, right? Like a few days after the shul closed, and someone said, yeah, it could be a full 8 weeks. I was like, oh my gosh, 8 weeks, wow. And that was, that was, that seemed like a very, very long time. And it's been a lot longer than that. So hopefully, whatever, hopefully it'll be, it will be shorter. I'm pretty sure it'll be a shorter duration than we're waiting for the Beis Hamikdash. So that definitely is relevant, but I don't know, things about tefillah, thinking about where you pray or how you pray or the prayers you say. I don't know. I mean, we did, we had like a few weeks of like Kabbalat Shabbat over Zoom. I think attendance dropped every week, for like the 2 months that we did it, like week to week to week, it like dropped, which was interesting. I think Benny, you were there pretty much till the end. You were one of the last stalwarts. But I don't know. It's sort of interesting, right? Sort of like to me, it was sort of interesting. The Shabbat started earlier, so maybe that had something to do with it. But it was sort of interesting, like in terms of what people were like. Okay, I need to see my shul folks and like say these tefillah with other people, at least looking at them on a screen before Shabbat starts, and then maybe eventually like, no, actually, I can daven in my living room, and in my dining room. I don't need that. I don't need to hear a chazan, over the computer. That's not a meaningful Zeichel HaMikdash for me. Maybe that was what people had. I don't know. Any other comments?
The most moving thing for me has so far, this is Ezra, been Yigdal last Rosh Hashanah. I have been missing Yigdal so much.
That's interesting. Yeah, right. We've shortened tefillot in ways that are like really unusual. Like that's been sort of we're fitting in more shorter tefillot in the same amount of time. So we've taken things out and we've cut back to like some of the basics, but what's basic and what's extraneous is somewhat subjective. And so we did sing Yigdal on Rosh Hashanah evening for the first time in months. And yeah, beautiful words. And the first class about Hashat's back in shul, right? That was really exciting. Okay, but you're not really answering. You're saying, oh, it was so great when we got to do this again. I want to tell you, I want to ask, what about the things that you haven't done? What have you taken with you? Okay, what are you doing Zakkai Mikdash? What's part of your life now that you what's part of your life now that was not before? Okay, that you've taken into your home life, that you've taken outside of the shul, not just the parking lot, like to your house, to your life. That's a Zakkai Mikdash. I think it's important to do that. Okay, and so I want to pivot now. Keep thinking about this, okay, and send your Cleo dances to Don't Allow. That's awesome. Oh, touch about at home. Good. Touch about awesome. Touch about home. That's great. Good. Call it good. Okay, that's great. Good stuff, Torahs. That's good. Okay. Amazing. Okay, so this is a song by Yishai Ribo, who's an Israeli musician, and let's see how. And you should all. I have a link here of. Let's see. I'm going to share this link in the chat. This is an annotated translation of the song by Rabbi Joe Schwartz, who. I don't know personally very well, but he is an incredibly gifted translator and annotator. And it'll help you get some of the allusions in the song. Lots and lots of allusions to the Yom Kippur tefillot in this song. He wrote it in the spring when Israel went into shutdown, the first lockdown in Israel back in March. And he describes the experience of going into lockdown. And he's asking God, like, what do you want us to learn from this? How do we come together and experience unity while being separated? And to me, that's sort of like this question, right? Because that's also something, it's not just ritual, it's also like the interpersonal aspect that we're really, really missing, right? Our Migdash Ma'at, our shuls were places of congregation and community. And that's, I think, been maybe the hardest thing to take with us and find ways to take with us, et cetera, in this newer reality, and that's the question he's asking us. Okay, that's the Zakkai Mikdash that we need. We need to find ways to come together and support one another and sustain community even as we're physically separate from one another. That's my interpretation of the song. I'm going to play it for you over the screen share. If that sounds terrible, just play it yourself because you have the link. Okay, you have the source sheet, you have the link. You can play it yourself and just mute yourself. Okay, so yes.
You may want to press like new share and make sure you're sharing computer audio.
Okay, so I'm going to stop share. Hold on. And thank you.
Little checkbox at the bottom.
Okay, let's see. Share screen and share computer sound. Oh, look at that! Amazing. Okay. Thank you. Now I have to find the, where is it? Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, no, that's it. Looks like there. Nope, that's not mine. Sorry, let's.
בין תרומה לתצווה, יום הולדת קצת משונה, הכל רגיל כאן לכאורה, במה קל ואהבה, בין תצווה לכי תישא, אסתר פורים משתה שמחה, מי יחנה ומי יישא בתוצאה, בין כי תישא נבוא יקל עולם מפסיק להתקהל, להשתתק, להסתגר, ישמעאל אדום וישראל, בין ויקל בפקודי נשבעים ובשדה כבר אין מול מי להתנהל מגדל בבל שוב מתבלבל מה אתה רוצה שנבין מזה? איך מתרחקים ומתקרבים בכאב הזה רוצה לחיות אותך ולא להיות לבד ומה אתה רוצה שנלמד מזה? ואיך נדע להתאחד בפירוד הזה עד שניתן לך כתר מלוכה כתר מלוכה בין פקודי לויקרא כולנו באותה סירה אביב הגיע פסח בא ואיתו תקווה רבה שתקרא את רוע הגזירה לך דודי לקראת כלה הרי לנו כוחות יותר להתמודד להילחם מה אתה רוצה שנבין מזה? איך מתרחקים ומתקרבים בכאב הזה רוצה לחיות אותך ולא להיות לבד מה אתה רוצה שנלמד מזה? ואיך נדע להתאחד בפירוד הזה עד שניתן לך כתר מלוכה מה אתה רוצה שנבין מזה? איך מתרחקים ומתקרבים בכאב הזה רוצה לחיות אותך ולא להיות לבד מה אתה רוצה שנלמד מזה? ואיך נדע להתאחד בפירוד הזה עד שניתן לך כתר מלוכה כתר מלוכה מה אתה רוצה שנבין מזה? איך מתנתקים ומתחברים אל הלב הזה רוצה לחיות אותך ולא להיות לבד ומה אתה רוצה שנלמד מזה? ואיך נדע להתאחד בפירוד הזה שמע ישראל השם אחד ושמו אחד בין אדר לבין ניסן נפל פור זה הגורל אומרים זה זמן שמסוגל לנצח המזל
Okay. Have you ever heard that song before? Are you?
No.
Okay. So I think it I think it's an incredible song. It's really powerful. I'm going to open the annotated lyrics just to make sure we can just glance at them together before we end. Yeah. So here's the just look it over, okay? Again, you have the links. You can play the song as much as you want. You can look at the words as much as you want. So he dates it. He dates it by the parshiot, right? Which is sort of how we all experience. Many of us experience the gathering storm, right? As the parshiot, developed. Second paragraph, he said, right? This phrase here that I'm highlighting, who shall stay home, who shall travel, who shall bear the consequence? That's like echoing Utana Tokef, right? Who shall live, who shall die, right? So Yisa b'totza'ah, like it's about travel, quarantine, consequences of our actions, and the chorus, Right? What do you want us to understand from this? How do we maintain distance and draw closer in this pain? Okay, to each other, to God. We want to live you and not be alone. What do you want us to learn from this? How do we come together in this apartness? Until we give you a crown of sovereignty. It's another Yom Kippur. That's another Yom Kippur piyut that he's evoking. It's also, of course, a play on coronavirus, because keter, right? It's a crown. A keter is a crown. Corona is a crown. So it's that's another like play he's making on the words. This is very spring. Aviv Hagia Pesach Haba V'ito Tigla Rabba, right? Like that's an Israeli children's song. Simcha Rabba, Aviv Hagia Pesach, right? So it's very drawing a lot of allusions from liturgy, but again, the essential question, I think, what do we learn from this? How do we come together in our differences? How do we in our apartness? Okay, that to me, I think is. I'm gonna stop the share so I can see you all. That to me is that's the Zeichel Mikdash question. Okay, that's our Zeichel Mikdash question. It's not about shofar on Shabbat or lulav for 7 days, because please God, like we'll come back to shul, okay? Like, it's not like the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Our banishment from our shuls, please God, and with every expectation is much shorter than the time we've had the absence of the Beis HaMikdash. But okay, we still had this experience, all of us. We're still having this experience, all of us. And like, what do you want us to learn from this? What are we meant to learn from this? And the question he poses is, okay, let's find a way to be connected while being apart. And that's the question is simple. I think the answer is very hard. I think we've been struggling with that answer in one way or the other for months really. But I think that's a Zeichel Mikdash question. Okay, it's something's changed, and therefore our performance of Torah and Mitzvah, our connection to Torah and Mitzvah, our connection to community also changes as well. Okay, it used to be the Mesa English was the only place we could blow shofar on Shabbat. Now we blow shofar in the Beit Din as well. I guess as an aside, I should say, we of course don't blow shofar on Shabbat anywhere. That practice stopped at some point. Okay, and there's a history of that which could be researched and studied, but so we don't do that anymore. But so that's also important to understand. So I would love to hear your reactions if you especially haven't heard the song. Yishai Rabbi is an incredible artist, incredibly beautiful music. I believe. I think very creative lyrics that are very heavily influenced on liturgy and Tanakh and just very learned. If you haven't heard of him, he has another really wonderful song called Seder Havoda, which is very popular. And I'll share the link in the chat just so if you're introducing anyone to Yishai Rabbi, you should get something out of this. Here, so then I'll share the link. I think he's really great, and I think he became really popular relatively recently, and I don't know much about him, but that's another really famous song of his. You should watch that on your own time.
There is a huge fundraising deadline coming up for Senate.
Oh, sorry.
They need your help right now.
Ooh. I didn't mean to play that.
Quick question, or is there time?
Questions, comments?
Quick question.
Yeah.
The use of the word keter versus the use of the word atara, do they have a deeper significance, or they're just a different thing? Because I think
a keter is what a king wears, and atara is like something smaller.
Because I was thinking of Anim's
like a tiara, maybe a tiara or something that's smaller. Yeah.
I was thinking of Anim's Mirot, which I thought had keter in it, but it doesn't. It only has atara.
Well,
I think.
Something more like a diadem?
Diadem. Thank you. That's better. That's better than tiara. That's good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but keter melucha, that's a Yom Kippur piyut, right?
Yeah. Okay, so it's a sort of there's more pomp in a keter.
Yeah, and it signifies royalty. That's also about royalty.
Right. Okay.
Torah is about decoration, and the keter is about royalty. Right. So keter melucha, it's about like God being king. And I think that's also like part of the song. It's like, okay, like we're not in control and God's the king, but like, and we want intimacy with you, God, and we want intimacy with each other. And we need like, help us to learn how to be intimate with each other, how to maintain closeness with each other under these very strange circumstances. Yeah. Okay. All right. Other questions, comments? Okay. Great. So if not, that's fine. We will, yeah, Benny? Yeah? No?
Well, I thought about the song. I mean, it's a beautiful song. I really like it. And I didn't think about, I've listened to it a couple times. Listening to it this time and the way you went through it in the translation made me think about like how fast it all passes. And I think that's something that was like very much my experience of the last, like, God knows how many months now. But like it sort of was, each week just sort of like somehow flew by, and that's sort of like, oh, here's another parsha we've gone past, another parsha we've gone past. And it was so, like, it was, the song sort of captures that like fleeting nature of the time that we sort of like lost, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it's funny. The song seems a little bit dated to me. It's like, oh, that's such an April song, you know. Like it's so, it like, you know, like the rawness and the like the strangeness and the, you know, like it's very like April, you know, like it's, you know, there was I saw some joke online, like if you know, some was like, you know, some like 50 years from now there'll be some conference of historians, and everyone will say, well, you know, what do you study? So my focus is like America in 2020. I'm like, oh, like which month? Like January or like, you know, February? So, so like that's, yeah, that's right. I also, somebody commented, I saw something like yesterday, which is true. This is true. Like somebody, it's 5 months until Purim. Would you believe that? It's 5 months until Purim, right? Isn't that crazy? You know? And people are like, what? No, it's not. Like Purim was like yesterday. You know, like it's still Purim. Yeah, right. So that's also like the time is very strange. The song is very good at like evoking the strangeness of yeah. It hit me when I said we finished all of the Midbar Nadashul. That's right. Yeah. Vayikra. We started and finished Vayikra Nadashul. Midbar also. Yeah, that's right. Started and finished Nadashul. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Let's pause for a moment, and we're going to transition to Yizkor starting around 9 or so. So everyone's welcome, as always, to stay in the room for Yizkor, even if you're blessed with living parents. If you're going to leave them, that's also fine. Just, you know, don't make noise in the hallway. But everyone's welcome to stay. So we'll those of you staying, we'll reconvene at 9 o'clock for our online Yizkor, and we'll invite other people into the room. Thank you so much for learning. If you have other questions, comments, think of ideas, follow up, please reach out, and we will, yeah, happy to continue these conversations. Thank you.